one thing we have to be very cautious about is that we don't end up fighting about the argument rather than the subject of the argument. What do I mean by this? It's a very simple thing, right? How could you speak to me like that? Me? I never do that. Me? I would never say that. I never do that. So what ends up happening is that basically this is a defense mechanism. So we end up saying, well, how could you be so rude? So rather than talking about the topic, we shift it to how the person is relaying the topic to us. Because that's very often it's something we don't want to deal with, we don't want to discuss it. So the fact that you brought it up, and in our generation, I'm offended. You've offended me.
Well, you already had the argument.
Right.
You've defended it so much in your head already that by the time the person comes to talk to you, you are so ready to tackle that. Like you've been building up armor in here for a while now.
Some of the things I've been practicing for decades, you've got no chance. You've got no chance, right? So the very fact that you would bring this up tells me you don't love me. The fact that you would mention this to me only shows you have no idea who I am. And all these kinds of things. So the people do, I do, and I'm sure you do as well. There are some areas that are so sensitive that we're very scared and we're very nervous of them. And one thing I can tell you is that first of all, we sit across the table from many different kinds of couples. I'm sure you know, Jewish, non-Jewish, mixed, different religious levels, and every couple has their own emotional, intellectual, physical and spiritual reality going on. And very often we don't know what happens behind closed doors of a couple. We have an idea of what it might look like by getting to know people, but couples do not act the same way that they do in public as they do in private, right? Baruch Hashem, I would say. With a big Baruch Hashem there, it's very nice. But what that means for the therapist or rabbi or rabbanit or as us as counselors is that no matter what kind of advice we give people in terms of building their marriage, it's always up to the couple. It's a bit like this. Imagine, if someone gives you a treasure map, you still have to go and buy the shovel. You still have to go on the journey to go get the treasure. So no matter how accurate the treasure map, it's up to you ultimately to go on the journey. Now, one of the secrets that we've seen is that a couple at some point becomes conscious to different degrees that they have to work on their marriage. And this takes me really into the core of something that we touched on last time, but I think it's very important, which is that if you imagine, like, you've got a business, you start a business, right? So you take your coin and you go to the back garden and you dig a hole and you drop the coin in the ground and you're waiting for the money tree to happen, right? Anyone ever done that? No, right? There's nobody who takes a coin, they take $100, they bury it, and they just wait for the money tree to come up, right? Doesn't happen. Or there's a guy, he goes to the gym and he stands against the back wall and he's watching everybody else on the machines and he's waiting to get healthier. Right? Doesn't make any sense. There's a musician, they decide that they want to be a great musician, so they keep the instrument in the box and they stare at the box for a few hours a day like this. There's a guy, he wants to become a great chef. He takes all his knives and all his special tools, he puts them in a drawer, he locks it. Stands like this. He's got the recipe books, he doesn't open it. What do we say about those people, right? We say, that's a shame, right? They didn't understand the basics. And so a bit like that is to understand the key critical thing is that a marriage is not going to work just by itself. It doesn't do that. Nothing happens by itself. When we have children, is when we see children really want something. So we have to impart to them there's a certain amount of effort that's required to attain it. There's that magical moment, I'm sure everyone has had it, when the child is learning to ride a bike and you let go of the bike and all the time they've spent falling off and crashing and plummeting down to the bottom of the grass, it pays off and there's a wobble and they go. Why? Because everything in life that's worth having takes a tremendous amount of effort. And one of the problems that can happen in marriage is we can start to expect that, well, I expect them to do it, it's going to be okay. Tov Mod. Imagine if you ran a business right now And instead of instructing your team what to do, I'm just gonna go hang out. I'm gonna lock myself in the cupboard, right? I leave a cupboard on it, right? And the business will run itself, right? It's not gonna happen. It's not gonna happen. The top CEOs, even the people who delegate, they're on top of everything. And that's why we have to understand that it's a magical formula. Effort equals success. It's not an absolute guarantee. Sometimes things are beyond our control. We like to say as Jews, effort plus Hashem equals success, right? It's all down to us. There's a lot of prayer and a lot of avodat Hashem involved. But if your idea of marriage is that, well, I'd love my marriage to be a culinary delight, but I'm not going to research how the ingredients work together. I want my marriage to be a symphony, but I'm not interested in learning the scales. I want my marriage to be a success, but I'm not going to put at least as much effort as I'm putting into my business. It is basically guaranteed to fail. And if you think about anything in your life that you take seriously, anything that you're interested in, or anything that's important to you, you know that you can't have it or be interested in it without a great deal of mental exertion, physical exertion, and interest in it. And what can happen in marriage is if we lose interest, we lose the ability to put energy into it. We're no longer putting effort into things. We should expect problems. And this is a general thing. This is a pattern that causes fight. You don't put any energy into this area of our marriage anymore. And whether that's a physical area or a spiritual area or an intellect, especially with women, an intellectual area. Used to be so interested in my day. Now, hey, Han, how was your day? Yeah, it was good. Oh, great. Okay. What's for dinner? As soon as people get to that place, they feel very undervalued and very unloved. At one point, it was fireworks. Now it's not fireworks. That hurts. At one point, it was roses. Now it's